If you watched my previous video on letting go, where David Hawkins and Jiddu Krishnamurti, both of them, kind of point to the essence of letting go, that is, distinguishing truth from falsehood, actuality from fantasy. These are synonyms. Actuality from fantasy, uh, the present moment to the stuff that is not the present moment. And both of them, David Hawkins and Jiddu Krishnamurti, and every other spiritual leader who has been enlightened, have this ability to distinguish truth from falsehood. And if you have noticed the analogy that I used, it is almost like a finger pointing to the moon. We often we have to know that this is a finger and that's the moon, and oftentimes we get confused. So the finger pointing to the moon is not the moon. So the symbols used to describe the experience is not the experience. Yeah, the experience of you seeing the moon is not this logical understanding of how you can see the moon. Yeah? And oftentimes we get lost in symbols, in the world of symbols, the world of pointers, and we think this is true, and the moon that's actually there is not true. First of all, we don't even see the moon because we are so busy right here, and we think this is true, and we live right here. And one of the essential skill is to distinguish truth from falsehood. Now, Qualities of Truth by David Hawkins. This I'm getting from his audiobook called Truth versus Falsehood, which is this entire presentation is trying to like describe the qualities of the moon rather than the qualities of the pointer. I'll have a separate video coming up which will talk about the qualities of the pointer, which is because it's very important to learn to distinguish truth from falsehood, actuality from reality. So let's begin. Truth is subjective. So what this means is when your experience of looking at the truth is going to be subjective. So when you look at the moon, right, it's a very subjective experience. There's nothing objective about it. No one can actually perceive what you're perceiving. So the experience of truth is always going to be subjective. Many people might see the same moon, all right. However, your experience of the moon is always going to be subjective. So the truth with a capital T is always going to be subjective. Moving on to the next one, truth is universal. This means that it is ever present. It always exists and it is the same truth. It's not like one person will come up with one truth, another person will come up with other truth. When everybody looks at the moon, they see the same moon. So the moon here is universal. So the truth with capital T is also universal. Truth with a capital T is revealed in exactly the same way throughout history. Same way. There might be different processes that people use. Some people use mind, like we're using here. You can use devotion, you can use dharma, which is duty, karma, which is action. So many ways. But to see the same truth, truth with a capital T. Truth is non exclusive. Truth doesn't have this thing where, oh, I'm gonna show the truth only to like this select number of people. No, truth is universal, right? So a part of being universal is non-exclusive. You can see the truth, dog can see the truth. It's not like, oh, only humans can perceive the truth and dog can't, right? It's like everybody has access to truth. Truth in the sense is non-exclusive. It doesn't like give exclusive access to like certain people or something like that. Everybody has access to the moon. It's like sky, right? Everybody has the access to the sky. However, there are sometimes the clouds that block the sky, which is a falsehood, the symbols, right? And our goal here is to not to confuse the cloud, the falsehood, with the sky, which is the truth. And once you remove the falsehood, recognize this is a falsehood and remove it, the sky will be there. Truth will always be there. So truth in that sense is non-exclusive. Truth is available. What this means is truth is available for everyone. It's not like it has a expiry date or you have to like get it buy one get one free. So you have to like get it now. There's no incentive like that. Truth is always available in abundance to everyone. It's like sky, right? The sky is always available to everyone. It's not like, oh, if you buy it during Christmas, you'll get 50% off. So you better buy it now, because availability is on short. No, there's nothing like that. Truth is available for everyone equally. Moving on to the next one. Truth has integrity of purpose. So I'll let David Hawkins say the next one, integrity of purpose, truth versus falsehood.
And the next is integrity of purpose.
Yeah, a spiritual organization has integrity of purpose, has nothing to gain or lose. In other words, it has no profit whether you go along with them and nothing to lose if you leave them. Why? Because truth is self-sufficient and self-fulfilling in and of itself, like the state of what the world calls enlightenment or self-realization. It's complete and total. It needs nothing from anyone. It doesn't need people's agreement. It's complete and total unto itself. Has no needs.
And that's what David Hawkins means by integrity of purpose. Means that it has integrity and it doesn't. The truth wouldn't compromise its integrity for anyone because it is truth. There's nothing anyone could give it. Truth is self-sufficient, meaning it doesn't need anyone. It doesn't. Uh, if truth needs someone, it would be almost true. It wouldn't be the truth. Yeah, nothing can be almost true, right? So truth, in its nature, is self-sufficient, which I think we'll see in one of the qualities in the future. Truth is non-sectarian. What this means is truth does not belong to any particular sector or any particular cult or any religion like that. Truth in that sense is very non-sectarian. If you look at the meaning, so so it's not like a religion can come up and say our truth is the truth and your truth is not the truth, and only our religion can point to the truth and no one else can. It's like saying, oh, look at this finger, only this finger can point to the moon, not this one. No, 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 this finger cannot point, this one only. So doesn't make sense, right? Truth in that sense is non-sectarian. Found this guy. Truth is independent of any opinion. Truth, in itself, as because it's self-sufficient, it just exists. If you notice that your opinion is changing the nature of truth, then it's not the truth. Truth is independent of anybody's opinion of what the truth is. Truth by in itself is the truth. It is independent of opinion. And this truth, I mean like the spiritual truth, the truth, truth with capital T, also what is known as what is, the present moment without any stories, lots of names. So don't get confused with scientific truths. This is a spiritual truth. What is? What remains once you remove all the stories? No. So truth is independent of intellect. You don't have, whether you think or not, then it won't affect truth. Truth will just be there. It is independent of the stories you put on top of the truth. If you feel what you're thinking is a story, it's not the truth. Because truth is independent of any stories. It exists below all the overlays of the stories. You feel me? Truth is devoid of positionality. I'll let David Hawkins say this one. Because he says it in a way.
I know the seventh characteristic is that truth is devoid of positionality.
Yes, as we mentioned, truth is not anti-anything. The reason is there is no opposite to truth. There's only its absence. So ignorance is just the absence of truth. And therefore, truth doesn't really have any enemies. Doesn't have any enemies. Whether people believe it or not, it's their problem. Yeah? It either wins or loses by
Just is.
affirmation.
So what David Hawkins means here, that it is devoid of positionality, that truth in its nature is absolute. Right? So there is nothing that is not the truth. So because truth in itself is absolute, it doesn't have any position to take. Yeah. Because it is all the positions. Truth is absolute. It doesn't have. This is a consequence of truth being non-dual in nature, because positionality is a premise on top of the concept of non-duality. Oh, there is me, there is this thing, there's that thing, and then you have to like pick a position, right? Truth in itself is non-dual in nature. Because it's non-dual in nature, there is no duality to like take position in. There's no like there's me, there's this guy, and then I'll take a position. I'll take a preference, right? So truth is non-dual. Because it's non-dual, it is devoid of any positionality. Moving on to the next one, truth has no requirements or demands. Because truth is self-sufficient in nature, it doesn't require anything, or it doesn't have any demands. Oh, because I'm the truth, I require you to like do this, papa papa papa. Or if you want to see the truth, then you require to like pay $1,000 every month or something like that. Or if you require truth, then you have to like climb Mount Everest, sit there in snow like for 100 million years. No, truth has no demands or requirements. We do, the ego does, but truth doesn't, because it has integrity too. Truth is non controlling, meaning it has nothing to gain or lose. Remember, due to that, it is non controlling in nature. It's not like truth will try to like possess you or try to like asserts its dominance or assert its will or anything, because truth by itself is absolute. So truth itself is non controlling in nature. Truth is free of force or intimidation. So because truth is self-sufficient, it doesn't require you to force something to happen or to like intimidate you, like, hey, if you do this, then it is truth. Or it's like you have to do this because it's truth. No, truth doesn't have anything like that. Truth is free of any force or intimidation. Whenever you see force or intimidation, that's because an ego does that for like selfish reasons, or like a devilish reasons disguised in a very selfless veil. Yeah, all any force or intimidation is done by ego, not the truth. Moving on to the next word, truth is non-binding. I'll let David Hawkins explain this one.
And the 11th characteristic of truth is that it's non-binding.
Well, because spiritual truth is complete and total in itself, it has nothing to gain. So it doesn't have any regulations. It doesn't have any laws, no contracts. You don't have to sign anything. And the thing about oaths and pledges, the wisdom says never go along with an oath or a pledge. Why? Because you're binding yourself in more than this lifetime. All kinds of horrible things happen to people. And if you research the karmic propensity, they took an oath in a lifetime. They took an oath. And the oath usually ends up, or may the reverse be my fate. The minute you hear that, watch out. Because you know what? Karmically, the reverse is going to be your fate because you just took an oath.
I've heard that. I've heard about.
It's scary,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, so the truth doesn't bind you to any laws or requirements or anything like that, or any like rituals or anything like that. Truth has very non-binding in nature. Moving on to the next one, truth has the characteristic of freedom. I'll also let David Hawkins say this one, because this one is like it's not immediately obvious, but it's like once you try to like tune into the nature of truth, you'll kind of understand why is truth freedom.
The 12th characteristic being freedom. Yes.
Yes, well, obviously, from intuitively understanding spiritual truth, you would understand. Freedom is innate to divinity itself. Karmically, we are the only one who paddles our own canoe. It's by our choice and our options. So spiritual truth then would be exhibit the quality of divinity itself, freedom. Everything is voluntary. There's no adulation of people. People who serve a spiritual organization are the servants, and they do what they do, and there's no point of adulation and that kind of thing.
And the 13th characteristic being commonality.
That means recognition is dependent on what you are. Your reality comes out of what you have become and what you are now, not as a result of some addition, external addition, the title or a trapping or an office or some extraneous power.
So truth has the characteristic of freedom because you're not chained to anything. When you see the truth is not chained to anything. When you experience the truth. Also, trueness has a characteristic of commonality, which also David Hawkins explained right now. Has a characteristic of inspirational. I'll let David Hawkins say this as well. Like, He just does a better job than me explaining it.
The 14th characteristic of truth is inspirational.
Yes, inspiration is different than glamorization. So enthusiasm, many people are impressed because the teacher is called a great avatar and has millions of followers worldwide. When you calibrate the avatar, the one I'm thinking about right now calibrates to about 300, you see. Look at all the followers and look at the title. Theatrics, there's costuming and posturing and, it's always popular to wear a robe and sandals and have long hair and a staff, That's the old Jesus symbol. I'm sure Jesus didn't even look like that, you know what I'm saying? But that's, so you get Hollywood theatrical gurus, them saying they come on like they're on stage,
Now, the 15th characteristic of truth is that it's non-materialistic.
Yes, spiritual truth is not interested in financial gain, wealth, pomp, etc. So, there's many cults. They're not rare. They're common, who fleece you financially, work you for money. It's really horrendous. The sad things we got. If you're complete and total within yourself, of what good would be worldly wealth? Well, what happens is the cult leader or the religion, it's pretty easy to rationalize that. Well, if we have lots of money, then we can spread the good word and save the world. Thanks a lot. You and everybody else who's screwed religion out of its integrity has said exactly the same thing. For the sake of the good Lord, you can sign over all your goods to us. Yes. In the meantime, your wife can work for free in the kitchen, and we'll take over your kids at a certain age, and you can sign your property over to us right here, and now you've just saved your life, so that's such thin rationalization. You wonder anybody can, for the good of the faith, we need your wealth. Why is it always your wealth that they need? Your money.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Now, the 16th characteristic of truth is self-fulfilling.
Yes, it's already total and complete. It doesn't need to sell. So this is to counter, proselytation, propagation, advertising, and promotion. A lot of these non-integrous groups, they're peddling some.
I'm playing this because what he's going to say next is very insightful, and someone in the group asked as well this exact same question what she's about to ask.
Simple spiritual technique. It's a simple technique which you can frankly read in any spiritual book. They'll take 2 sentences and build a whole program around that. Now they charge you $450 for a training weekend, workshops. In the meantime, they put out some very slick-looking advertising. It's like investing in the gold market or something, these great big things that come in the mail. Then they have celebrities in there, actresses and famous names and all, who swear by how wonderful this particular technique or something is, for which, of course, there is a charge. And many of these are even marketing systems. They're really marketing sales, whether you're selling vacuum cleaners or the specific spiritual technique. The marketing is exactly the same. The strategy is the same. The advertising is the same. They got a picture of the great leader, you know what I'm saying? And then they have celebrities telling you how wonderful their life is now. They took the workshop on how to be happy. I'll tell you how to be happy. I already mentioned about 92 things. Just do any of them and you'll be happy.
But at the same time, Dr. Hawkins, you charge for your workshops. There's an exchange of money. How do they discern?
No, I don't charge for the workshop. I don't charge anything for the workshop. When you put on a lecture, you're going to have $10,000, $15,000 up front. Now, there's legitimate costs for publications, rental space, employees, etc. So if you're going to run a big meeting, for instance, you're going to need a whole office staff to handle emails, mail, etc. At one hotel that we did in town, you had to put up $15,000 in advance. Plus, you had to guarantee, I forget how many rooms, 100 rooms or something. And the rooms were like 100 and some odd apiece. So you're taking on about a $40,000, $50,000 obligation, you see. Well, to keep up with that, you're going to have to develop a whole commercialized marketing plan. So you can see how these organizations get themselves into where they're at. They're going to promote to get all this money. Now they're going to build this big hoopla lodge, or they're going to, have a big spread someplace. That's going to cost millions. So what happens is you get into the necessity of constantly peddling, commercializing, promoting, proselytizing. And what is the intention there? What is the intention? No, but there's legitimate charges. I myself don't charge anything. I don't charge anything for a lecture. Whatever the circumstance is in that culture at that time, you go along with. You've got to pay for parking space. You've got to pay for all these things. You got maybe, when we run a lecture, it takes 8 to 10 employees. Well, they're all on the payroll.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to rent the space. And then you have to have insurance on the space. And then you have to have an advance deposit. Then you have to have triplicates of the lease. And you have to have the lawyer look it over. Then you have to take out crowd insurance.
Right. So it
the whole
costs
thing
you, it's going to
multiplies.
cost them. So how do they?
You can't put any public event on without it costing
Mm-hmm.
about what we charge. So what we do is we cover it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the cost of the office staff. You got hundreds of people calling in for weeks and months,
Mm-hmm.
making reservations, changing reservations, getting them into a motel, and making all the arrangements, flight arrangements, pick us up at the airport. You have to have a whole staff to just process it.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're not talking about that kind of covering your expenses, because
But then you also
every
need
group
to make
covers
a living.
expenses.
You also need to.
I don't need that to make a living. I had the biggest practice in the United States for 50 years. I don't need it to make a living at all.
So then, for an authentic, integrous spiritual teacher,
Hmm.
they should not make a profit on the speaking.
No, profit is a different concept. Making a living. Every minister makes a living and needs to make a living so that he can spend his time and energy helping his flock.
Mm-hmm.
That's not profit. He's not profiting over it. No, a integrous minister, obviously, is supported by the congregation. To profit means he goes out to his congregation now and begins to exploit them. And of course, they hit the newspaper. You get a religious follower, you work him into a deal. So exploitation, profiteering is what I'm talking about, profiteering.
Mm-hmm.
No, you got to pay your minister, because if the minister can't live a decent life, he can't put his energy into helping his flock.
Right, right.
So you got a legitimate need. You take a person well advanced in life, they don't need the money. They don't need the money. What would you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
You can only eat one steak at a time. You find that out no matter how
Good
rich you
point.
are. So the rest becomes an encumbrance, you see.
Right.
So truth is not materialistic, doesn't depend on material. Truth is self-fulfilling, obviously. Truth is detached from any outcome. So truth is detached from any particular outcome. Outcome, what exactly it means is that you have this present moment here. You're like, I don't want this present moment. I want some other moment, and I prefer that moment more. That fantasy, moments happening in fantasy, I prefer that more than this present moment. And so I'm attached. That's where the concept of attachment itself comes from. So truth itself is very detached. Truth is attached to itself, which is why it's detached to everything else. So the truth itself is detached. The next one is truth is benign. Benign has a nature of love. This is kind of like an advanced thing, but as you notice, because truth is self-sufficient and the concept of love, hate, and all comes from this idea, or comes from this mechanism where you're preferring stories, you're preferring fantasies more than you're preferring the truth with the capital T. You're preferring this moment. So what hate means is that, oh, I don't prefer this moment. This moment I hate it. I prefer rather something else, and I love that. So I love my story more than the moment. So as truth becomes as you experience the truth by in itself will be self-sufficient. And it has no positionality, remember? Because it has no positionality and it is self-sufficient, when you're in the truth, you're like, oh, there's nothing you can do but love the truth. Because what are you going to do? Hate it? But you'll hate it for what? Okay, what do you prefer? There's nothing to prefer because all the stories are gone, you see. So that's why truth has this nature of very loving, benign nature. Truth is non-intentional. It doesn't have any intentions behind it. Intention, what? It's also like an expectation to a certain outcome here. Truth is non-intentional. Truth is always invitational but never promotional. Yeah, truth is never like you have to buy this because you lack this, and when you buy this lack that you have will suddenly go away. No. Truth will always invite you, hey, you can look at the moon. But it'll never be like, oh, without the moon you're nothing, stuff like that. No, it's very invitational in nature, which is also, you'll see this point later on too. Truth is non-dualistic. There is no sense of duality in truth, and there's like an entire religion called non-dualism, where you can like go check that out. But basically, what it means is there's no perceiver and perceived. This duality kind of collapse. Love, hate. These dualities collapse in a very non-dual way. Uh, you and everything else. That's also a duality, right? Up, down, a duality. Truth has no duality like that. It's very non-dualistic in nature. Truth has tranquility and peace because truth is self-sufficient, and because, as I said before, the nature of love. This is where truth and love kind of connects. Because truth is very loving in nature, it's also very peaceful and tranquil. Because what is tranquility? You don't need anything else in this moment right now. Yeah, it's self-sufficient. So it's very peaceful in its nature. Truth has a characteristic of equality, but equality is like it's equal to everybody. It's not. It doesn't like play fairsies. Truth is equal. This is obvious. Truth is non-temper. Non Truth has a characteristics of non-temporality. This basically means is truth is not affected by a sense of time. In fact, time itself is like an overlay on top of truth. It's not like a inherent nature of truth. It's more like an overlay on top of truth. Truth itself is independent of time and space. Yeah. Truth is very much happening. It's a constant happening in this moment. It doesn't subscribe to the idea of time. Truth is beyond proof because truth is subjective in nature. The first point, you can't prove it because to prove something it is linear in nature, but truth itself is non-linear in nature. Truth itself is very subjective. Truth has a quality of being mystical because it's not subjective, because you can't explain it through symbols. Of course, the moon. It has this magical quality about it, a very mystical quality about it. You'll also have experienced this mystical quality when you like suddenly see a sunset and it's just like beautiful. The sunset, I'm like, oh my god, sunset is beautiful. You think of it like that way, and I'm like, for a moment you wouldn't be able to like describe that experience to anybody. Yeah, it's an analogy, but something like that. An experience is that experience is very mystical in nature. It's very hard to explain through words. Truth is ineffable, of course. You cannot explain it using words. You cannot speak the truth. You can only talk about the pointers pointing at the truth, but you can never have a pointer that is the truth. Yeah. All the finger end of the day can only point at the moon. No hand would ever become the moon. So in that sense, you cannot speak about the truth because all the words are nothing but pointers pointing at experiences, aspects of reality. Truth has a characteristic of being simplistic. Truth is very simple in nature. It's not so complicated with all the symbols. Pa 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 pa. It's just there. It's simple. There's no complexity to truth. Because there's no symbols. You see, pointing at each other. Truth is affirmative. Like it is grounded. Because it is grounded, it is affirmative. It's grounded in this present moment, and it asserts because it is true. Truth has a characteristic of being non-operative. I'll let David Hawkins talk about this one.
Now, the next one's interesting is that truth is non-operative.
Yes, this is a little difficult to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's non-linear, there's no this nor that. It's non-dualistic. Truth stands on its own. It doesn't do anything. You might say it's the stage, like the sky doesn't do anything. It just is. So the ultimate reality, which is a subjective realization, is everything's meaning is what it is. The meaning of this table is completely explained by what it is. And any mentalization about it is unnecessary. Everything means what it is. What it is what it means. Yeah, when you say, who are you? And you say, I'm me. That's because you see that is a complete and total statement. It needs no amplification, you know?
Now, the 30th characteristic is invitational.
Yes, because spiritual truth attracts because of the power of its integrity. See, coercion, cults and various things like that use coercion, intimidation, and such are using force. Spiritual truth comes from power, and it attracts. It has a magnetic attraction to people who are over 200. To people who are under 200, it may have the opposite effect. They may avoid it because it's a different domain in which they can't survive because of your...
So it doesn't operate. That's what David Hawkins was saying. Next is truth is invitational. It never tries to like force you, but it always invites you. Oh, there is an experience. They call it truth that you can experience, right? So it will always invite you, but never try to like force you and you have to like see the truth. Grab you by the hair, try to like make you look at the moon. No. The moon is just there, right? Being beautiful, shining in the sky. It kind of like invites you to like look at the moon. But the moon never like forces you to like look at it, you know? It's not like your head is like, oh my god, the moon. Right. Next is the truth is non-predictive.
Characteristic 31 is that truth is non-predictive.
Just on the physical level, we saw from the Heisenberg principle that the state of the universe as it is now, which we can define by the Schrödinger equations, is changed by merely observing it. Then, because what happens is you collapse the wave function from potentiality to actuality, you now have a new reality. In fact, you have to use different mathematical formulas, the Dirac equations. So you've gone from potential into actuality. That transformation does not occur without the interjection of consciousness. Consequently, a thing could stand as a potentiality for thousands of years. Along comes somebody, looks at it differently, bang, it becomes an actuality. So the unmanifest then becomes the manifest as the consequence of creation. Therefore, predicting the future is impossible because you would have to know the mind of God, because creation is the unfolding of potentiality depending on local conditions and intention. You have no idea what intention is. Intention can change in 1 second from now. If the future was predictable, there would be no point to human existence because there would be no karmic benefit, no gain, no capacity to undo that which is negative. It would be confined to what is called predestination. You know? Predestination and predictions of the future miss the whole purpose of existence and human existence and jump the whole understanding of the evolution of consciousness. There would be no karmic merit nor demerit. There would be no salvation. There would be no heavens. There would be no stratifications of levels of consciousness. We would all just emerge perfectly in a perfect realm, and therefore there would be no purpose to this life at all. It's an absurdity. It's an absurdity. Yeah, all of these predictions about the future are absurdities. And if you calibrate them, they're all way below 200. Beings from the future who don't even exist yet are going to enter your realm and tell you all this and that. It's all poppycock. That's straight Dutch uncle talk.
Dutch
It
uncle.
pulls people in, pulls them
in. What he's saying is the present moment exists in this moment, yeah? Any conceptions of past or future is not happening in this moment. It's happening in your imagination, which is a fantasy. But your fantasy is not the truth. You see the problem here? So the present moment never predicts or sees to the past or anything. Because truth is always present in this moment. Any future or past is a fantasy that is powered through imagination. Imagination almost fuels the fantasy. Moving on to the next one is non-sentimental, which I feel is the last one. I'll let David Hawkins say this one too.
Now, the 32nd characteristic of
Yeah.
truth is that it's non-sentimental.
Yes, a lot of people confuse spirituality with sentimentalism. Oh, if we're nice to them, they're going to be nice to us. I'll tell you, if you're nice to them, they're going to behead you slowly. They're not going to be nice to you. Why? because you're a non-believer. You're a heretic. As a heretic, you deserve to die. You see? All right. So sentimentalism then is a substitute for spiritual compassion. It gets confused. So it comes out as hand wringing. So you end up with weepy, wimpish hand wringing, which is peddled as spiritual. Not spiritual at all. It's sentimentalism. It's a self-indulgent, narcissistic, emotionalism. It's really childish, very childish emotionalism,
Can you give me an example of that?
On sentimentalism,
Versus compassion, spiritual compassion.
well, compassion sees the essence of things. Sentimentality is hanging on to what it means to you. It's projecting your perception onto what's happening out there and then going into an emotional spasm about it. When you witness death, you witness death. There's no point to wring your hands, weep, cry. You should do that. You should be sufficiently non-attached that, of course, that's expected. Of course, it's going to come about. Of course, tomorrow is going to come. Everybody's wringing their hands. Oh, tomorrow is coming. Tomorrow is coming.
Yeah.
It's self-indulgent. Sentimentality means emotionalizing, because the ego loves the drama of emotionalizing. Loves to be center stage, be the great tragedy, the hero. And so it's a way of being center stage in your inner make-believe theater of what your life is and what it means, etc. The spiritual reality, it doesn't get any payoff from egoistic positions. Only the ego does. Doesn't get any payoff. Doesn't get attention, doesn't love attention.
So this is the 35 or 36 qualities of truth. Let me know how you like this video. This video is pretty long to shoot. I hope you guys like it. Let me know in the comments below what kind of videos you would like next. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.